because whatever the saline is going to be pumped inside, I want it to stay there and it's going to create pressure inside. I don't want that to come out. If the osteotomy size was wider than the size of this drill, then the saline would be coming out. There would be no pressure that's going to be created inside. So we move inside and the drill stopper is going to stop us. These drills I use at 300 RPM, okay? Now we come back, change the drill stopper, and as we're going to reach close to this drill stopper is going to stop us. A very thin layer of bone is going to be left attached there to the Schneiderian membrane, okay? Now, once, as I told you, this thin layer is going to be pushed away along with the Schneiderian membrane. You can see in this case, there is a thin bone left attached with the Schneiderian membrane. Even if when we are doing the lateral window approach, you'll see thin layer of bone left attached with the Schneiderian membrane, which is going to help us when we are going to be trying to separate the membrane, okay? Another thick case, you can see a very thin layer of bone that's left attached. So now, as we're going to keep pushing in the saline inside the sinus, this is going to move in all directions and it's going to keep separating the Schneiderian membrane from the surrounding bone, okay? So that this drill is narrower, this is an open hydraulic lift. When it pushes the saline inside, the excess saline keeps coming out, and if you, as I told you, it has diamonds on the neck. If you want to increase the diameter of the osteotomy, you can just move it around the osteotomy and it's just going to increase the size. So let's see how it works inside the sinus. See the Schneiderian membrane being pushed away and the drill stopper is not letting the drill go beyond the depth. So the entire membrane has been separated inside the sinus. Now once we've done that, we go ahead, place the graft material. It's very important that we distribute the graft so that the graft comes into contact with the lateral wall of the nose and the buccal wall of the sinus. Okay, so you gently move the curette inside so that it's all spread, and then place the implant. This should be the final result should be something like this, which is showing that the bone graft is coming into contact with the inner wall as well as the outer wall of the sinus. Now, what are the techniques for sinus membrane elevation? Osteotomes is not a good technique because I told you there is going to be, you have to fracture the floor of the sinus and the pressure is going to be only in one direction, in the upwards, and you won't even come to know when the membrane gets perforated. Mini elevators, curettes, again, where we are working, it's a very difficult area, so it's better not to use these curettes. Balloon is a good idea because it is going to have pressure in all the directions, but these balloons are single use, you cannot reuse them. Some people think that they can just simply go with the implant and they'll have this coin of bone left there. Believe me, in 99% of the cases this coin is missing and your implant comes directly into contact with the Schneiderian membrane and it might just entangle with the membrane and it might perforate the Schneiderian membrane. And there is a view that there is no need to graft in this area. Then the idea is once the healing has taken place, where eventually the membrane is going to come settle, how much bone is going to be formed around is a big question mark. So here's a study being done by Tepper that the peri-implant bone, which is, if it is a thin shell, it cannot tolerate the chewing forces. So there should be enough bone around our implants to take the load. And in my opinion, hydraulic lift is the best and the easiest way to use because we have already got the saline attached with our handpiece and there's going to be pressure in all directions and you can easily go ahead and separate the Schneiderian membrane. So this is a closed hydraulic lift and this is the open hydraulic lift where the saline is coming out along and you keep pumping in, the saline keeps coming out. Now this is a case that was referred to me. There has been somebody tried placing an implant, there was a failure. You can see there is in this X-ray also there's a visibility. Now I waited for 4 months and then I went ahead and did the lateral Crestal window approach. My thought process was, should I do a lateral window approach or should I do a Crestal window approach? But I thought, let me try Crestal. If I'm not able to achieve what I'm trying to, then I can always shift to the lateral window approach. That comes in a syringe form. I use the depth gauge probe to push the graft material inside because only little by little will go. And after each time I place the graft, I make an X-ray to see the dome shape. This is an excellent instrument to use to push the graft material inside. So we take an X-ray again, another X-ray, all indicating us that the tomb is getting bigger and bigger. And this is the final X-ray. So in this case, if you saw, I took first X-ray with little graft, pushed in more graft, second X-ray. When you have a dome shape like this, that keeps telling you that everything is working perfectly. And this is the final restoration given to the patient and the final X-ray. Now another very important thing when you're doing a Crestal window approach is to assess that the membrane integrity. What I mean is the membrane perforated or not, okay? So first is direct visualization, if you can see the membrane moving, but if there is a minute perforation anywhere and the blood covers that, still the membrane is going to keep moving. So you cannot rely upon this technique. Please remember that, okay? And if a bubble like this comes out of the osteotomy, this is a clear indication that the Schneiderian membrane has been perforated. Valsalva procedure is you hold the nostrils of the patient and ask the patient to blow, and you need to check if there's air coming out. In my opinion, it's a pretty difficult procedure to do. Probing, again, please don't try doing this. In my opinion, irrigation is the best method to check, okay? So you hold the tubing, take it into the osteotomy, push some saline, and ask the patient to breathe. The saline will come out. Again, do the same. Push some saline inside, ask the patient to breathe, and as you'll see, now if the patient tells you at this stage that I can feel something going in my throat, this means there was a perforation. The saline has gone into the nasal cavity, and from into the nasal cavity it's going into the throat of the patient. So now then you need to shift from your Crestal approach towards your lateral window approach. If you have multiple osteotomies, push from one osteotomy and you will see saline coming out from the second osteotomy. And then I've already explained you the radiology method. Keep making X-rays at each increment as you keep pushing in the graft. Make an X-ray, push in more graft, make an X-ray, and keep seeing the dooms being increasing in size. Now, this is another case in which study in which there was only 1 to 2 millimeters of residual bone height. Okay, and in this study they have placed 55 hydroxyapatite implants, and now they had meticulously grafted this area. Implants were found to be stable in all directions except rotational. This means the implant could not fall mesially, distally, buccally, or palatally, but it would rotate inside. So this means there was no primary stability of the implant. The rotational movement could not be prevented. In an animal study, implants that are rotational mobile became completely osseointegrated. All patients received fixed implant prostheses. The mean follow-up is of 26 months, so there was no implant loss. Okay, so this study proves that all you need to make sure is that your implant doesn't fall inside the sinus, and you can just hold it there. So it's going to integrate. So let's see this case. I'm going to do an extraction. As soon as I do the extraction, you're going to see this is a deciduous tooth. The membrane which was intact with this is going to come along with it, and there's going to be a perforation. So I have to move to the lateral window and do my lateral window approach. See the perforation there. So we're using a 6 millimeter diameter drill, lateral window drill. See the membrane moving, but we already know that the membrane is perforated. So when you see a moving membrane, please don't assume that the membrane there is no perforation. So we covered the perforation using a membrane and start placing graft material underneath it. I'm going to place the superline implant, and before placing it to the final position, I'm going to use a healing collar. So this is from where we started. Now if you see in the X-ray, my implant is all in the grafted area, okay? And now post-healing, we go ahead and give the prosthesis to the patient. And this is the final X-ray of the same patient once after we've restored it. So the advantage of the DASC drills is it permits gentle abrasive. You don't have to fracture, there are less chances of membrane perforation. The inbuilt hydraulic lift separates the sinus membrane. The drill stroppers don't let your drills go beyond a certain depth. Even in inclined planes and septas, the inbuilt hydraulic lift system safely separates the sinus membrane. Simple, easy to use, single kit for both lateral and crestal approach. Now we can even do digitally guided crestal approach. It's less invasive, more safe, less time required. So let's see this case. We have drills in the DASC kit only, which can be used over the guide. Place the guide. This is an extraction site where we're placing the implant, and the other 4 implants are going to be crestal approach. So pushing in saline from one osteotomy, you can see saline coming out from the second osteotomy. Again, we make X-rays at all levels and then we place the implants. So I'm going to just skip this as we have less time. You can see once this surgery was already done, the implants are very well placed. We've got graft all around in all the 3 implants. And now once we've loaded it, we've done the CBCT again. And on the other side also you can see good healing that's happened. So lateral window approach, we have these 3 drills. My preference is always to use these 2 drills. This I've already shown you where there are teeth present mesially and distally. I use the smaller drill, and this is where we have a large area to approach. So we start at 45 degrees, then make it 90 degrees, and then move mesiodistally and enter the sinus and separate the Schneiderian membrane, placing the graft followed by the implant. So in the first case, if you see there is a mucus retention cyst there. So I'm going to go remove in the surgery itself, I'm going to aspirate all the mucus from inside, and I'm going to make a cut into the Schneiderian membrane to put my suction inside if there is anything there that it can be pulled out. First we aspirate. Now we give an incision into the Schneiderian membrane. Take the high bed loop suction inside. Push in some saline, suck it out. If there's anything inside, it's going to come out. And now place a membrane underneath the perforation. So place the graft underneath the membrane. Now you prepare your osteotomies and place your implants. So I can skip this, placing the implants. Now this is how it looks, and this is the final of the same. So curettes should always stay in contact with the bony walls, never try to push the membrane. And curette should detach the membrane little by little in all directions. So there is another kit which has these beautiful diamond drills. Now if you have an area where you have to go, where there is a very thick bone, if you are trying to use the piezo and all, it's going to take a very long time, okay? So if you see in this case, you can gently just grind. You'll see this bone was around 5 to 6 millimeters in thickness. Now you can go ahead and detach, and the same procedure can be followed. And we can skip this. Another thing I want to show is that if you have an area like this, there's a large area that needs to be, you have to augment. Making a small window and going inside the sinus and trying to elevate the Schneiderian membrane, you might end up in perforating the Schneiderian membrane. So it's always advised that you make a large window like this. And to make this, you can see it's the same burr. It's not going to take you more than a few seconds to prepare this. Now from this, beyond this, the procedure is the same. You just place your graft followed by your implants, and this is how it's going to look, and this is the final. So what is the best way to manage the complications? The best way is to avoid them. Best way is to learn the proper protocol, what you need to do. So avoid situations like this where the implants are floating out into the sinus. So you should always learn the proper technique, okay? So to conclude, Crestal approach or lateral window approach, I would say the Crestal approach is the gold standard technique, and I would settle for nothing but the best. And in my opinion, this kit is the best kit that's available in the market. And this is my YouTube channel where you can see these videos, and you can subscribe to my channel to see more, as I'll be placing more videos there. Thank you. I'm sorry I took